Hello and welcome to my Oscars 2023 ranking. So this is me talking about the Oscars of 2023, meaning that these movies all came out in 2022. Um, yeah, okay. So I watched almost every movie that was nominated for Best Picture and also Best Animated Movie for the Oscars of that year. Um, I lost steam as I went through this. I couldn't give everyone a kind of complete ranking of everything. I also just got tired of watching bad movies. I will attempt to keep my thoughts about these movies brief since I watched a lot of movies for this. I will start talking about the Best Picture movies and then I will move on to Best Animated. So I have left out a couple movies on this kind of for various reasons. Yes, I did lose steam, and also there were some that I just couldn't force myself to watch. One is All Quiet on the Western Front. I'm sure it's a great movie, but war movies are, not exactly the most fun thing in the world to watch. So every time I was kind of like forced with sitting down and actually watching it, I was just like, fuck, I don't really want to watch it. And the other one is Triangle of Sadness. No, but I had heard about some of the stuff that happened in that movie, and I was just like, I just don't think that appeals to me. Um, so I also didn't force myself to watch that one. I could be leaving some other ones out of this. I don't remember, but yeah. So that's kind of why this list isn't fully complete yet, or ever really. Who knows? Life is long, but yeah, it's not complete. Okay, so starting with Best Picture, the my least favorite of the ones that I watched for Best Picture was Elvis. I didn't even wait until the movie was over to start writing my review for it because I was so bored watching this movie that I didn't even want to wait till it ended to start writing down what I was thinking, because I was just really, really bored. I was bored. I do feel the need to mention my own personal bias here. I do not really particularly like Elvis's music. I've never been a fan of his, so that's probably why I had never watched this movie up until this point, because that was the summer when everyone was watching Elvis, and I didn't. I watched it when it was already streaming. I didn't see it in theaters. So I do love Baz Luhrmann, but he wasn't enough to sell me on this one. I wish that this movie wasn't about Elvis because it very much relies on you already knowing and loving Elvis. Of course, I know who Elvis is, but I don't really give a shit about him. This movie doesn't really do anything to make Elvis feel like a real person. He's a spectacle and a pawn the entire movie. He never feels like anything at all. This movie tries to be like, oh, look, he's lonely sometimes, but he never really feels real. He never breaks the mold of the untouchable star, even when in his own movie that is designed to do that. Weirdly enough, I would argue that his manager is the main character of this movie because everything is from his perspective. It's done similarly to Moulin Rouge, how Ewan McGregor is both the narrator and the main character, even if the story is equally about him and Nicole Kidman. If Baz Luhrmann had to make a biopic about a musical star or music star, I wish that either it was about a completely fictional person or if it was about someone like Madonna. She would have fit his personal style really well. Someone who matches his like frenetic, over the top, kind of like crazy energy. Um, and I really did not like this movie at all. I thought I was really bored out of my skull. Austin Butler is good, I guess, but if he wins Best Actor over Colin Farrell, I'm going to start swinging, which did not happen. Um, I think this is a really interesting movie, kind of, looking back now after Priscilla has come out, because I really liked Priscilla. And I feel like, even though that movie was very much focused on Priscilla Presley as a person, you definitely get more, you feel like you learn more about Elvis as a person too through that movie. So Elvis very much in Priscilla feels like a real person. He doesn't, because you don't even see him sing in that movie, I don't think. You really only know Elvis in his relationship to Priscilla. So in that way, it feels like he's kind of trying to, because we never see like the stardom aspect of it, we really only see him through this aspect of this one relationship. It He felt like more of a real person than in the movie that was designed to kind of do that. Um, I really don't like Elvis. I don't think anybody should really watch it unless you're a big Elvis fan, and in that case, you've already seen it. Um, but I don't know. I was really bored. I I don't know. I'm recording this 2 years after the fact, and I could not tell you a goddamn thing that happens in this movie. So that probably goes to show. And I remember quite a bit of Priscilla, even though that came out last year. Okay, number 6 is The Fablemans. This is a hot take, I realize, but I did not like this movie. It was pretty painful to watch after the halfway point. This movie was made by Steven Spielberg, and it is semi-autobiographical of his life. For the first half of this movie, I was really enjoying it. It focuses more on Sammy Fableman's parents and his mother's mental health, and he finds out that his mother is having an affair, and it wasn't exactly mind-blowing or anything, but I was like, okay, this isn't bad. But then the movie just kept going. This wasn't the longest movie I've ever seen in my life. But after the Fablemans moved from California to Arizona, which is about the halfway point, or sorry, to California from Arizona, I just lost all interest. It was really corny in a bad way. I really didn't care about his time at school. Like, I was like, what are we doing here? Like, I don't know. I just thought it was really boring. I couldn't give less of a shit by the end of the movie. Felt nothing. Do not watch. Would not recommend. I know, like, the film people really love this movie. I just didn't. I'm sorry. I thought Michelle Williams was really good. So if she wins, I won't be upset. But yeah, I don't know. Number 5 is Avatar: The Way of Water. Should this movie have been nominated for Best Picture? No. Absolutely not. Unfortunately, the animation in this movie is really good. Yes, I'm calling it animation. Everything in this movie is CGI. That just means it's animated. It looks really good. If this was not animated, no one would give a shit about this movie. The writing is just so bad. Like, there's nothing about this movie that isn't the most cliche bullshit you've ever heard. But given all that, I was entertained watching this movie. It's better than the first one, but that's a low bar. The last hour was pretty entertaining. Damn it if James Cameron doesn't know his way around a sinking boat. When the characters shut the fuck up and actually started fighting, then my lizard brain was activated and I was entertained. Would I watch this movie again? No. Would I suggest anyone else watch this movie? No. But I am not upset that I have seen it. Now I have an opinion on it, even if it's not much. I will say I watched this movie in theaters with my sister, which probably helped, just because we were kind of talking to each other, making jokes the whole time. But yeah, I don't think that this movie was like particularly memorable or great. Again, I know this is a hot take, but not as bad as it could have been. Number 4 is Tar. It feels necessary to say that Tar is miles better than Avatar. The line between good and bad movies this year is really insane. Tar was really good. This movie is definitely not for everyone, but it really worked for me. If you told me to watch a movie about cancel culture and the pandemic, I would tell you to shut the fuck up. I'm not watching that bullshit. But this movie was basically that, and it wasn't at all what I was expecting. I've heard comparisons to Black Swan for this movie, and I definitely see that. However, where Black Swan conveys its message through body horror, Tar is far more subtle with its horror elements. There are moments that are absolutely unnerving and eerie in a very cool way. Also, Cate Blanchett fucking kills it. I'm sorry, Michelle Yeoh, you're awesome, but Cate Blanchett should win Best Actress. I know Michelle Yeoh won Best Actress, and I'm not mad about that. I mean, they were both really great, but I thought that like this movie was really dependent on Cate Blanchett's performance, and I thought she did a really great job, and therefore that's why I think she should win. Whatever. She's really awesome, and I did like this movie. This movie is shot really, really well as also. The sound design as well ruled. It was a good movie. Number 3, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Again, I know this is a hot take. I'm aware. This movie is really good. Like, but I realize that my placement on this list is controversial. So everyone knows this. This movie is great. Everyone's seen this movie. If you haven't, watch this movie. It's really good. I don't need to explain that. Some things I will explain is that this movie definitely didn't hit as hard for me as it did for others. I did like this movie. However, I'm not exactly super eager to watch it again. It was a very overwhelming movie to watch, which isn't always necessarily my thing. It was very cool and super unique, which was very neat, but I'm not sure if I would say it's a movie that everyone needs to watch in their lifetime. I'm actually going to rescind that statement. 2 years kind of post this movie. I think this is a movie that everyone should watch at some point in their lives, even though I will acknowledge that it's definitely not a movie that will work for everyone. Um, but I think that maybe I feel that way because everyone said it was the best movie they'd ever seen in their lives, and I didn't exactly feel that way, so maybe I'm being a little bit more negative than necessary. Even though that's barely negative, really, this is a very good movie. I think I'm being more negative about it than necessarily because it did feel really overwhelming to watch. It is a great movie. Um, I think that as more time has passed since I have seen this movie, I kind of think of it more positively. I don't know. When I first wrote this, I had watched the movie a couple months prior, and I remember being in the movie theater and just feeling like it was kind of hard to like grasp everything that was thrown in my direction because of the overwhelming nature of the movie. Um, so I think that's why I'm a little bit more negative here because I kind of had that emotion at the forefront of my mind. But 2 years removed from seeing this, now it's 2.5. But I do think that this is a really great movie. I think it's really fun and inventive and unique and creative. I wouldn't exactly this list is extremely subjective. It's really just about like how much I enjoyed it. I'm not exactly ranking it on what movie I think is the best because like do I think that this is better than the number one movie I have on this list? Yes. Did I enjoy the number one movie on this list more? Yes. Um so I think I don't know. This is a kind of a tough movie to talk about just because I haven't seen it again in 2.5 years, but I do really like it. I think it's a very good movie. Okay, number two is Banshees of Inisherin. I really like this movie. This movie stressed me the fuck out watching it, which is really funny because I was not expecting that. I was like, oh yeah, this is a movie about two friends having a breakup, and then Brendan Gleeson threw his fingers that he cut off himself at Colin Farrell's door, which is definitely intense when it was happening. I was like, oh shit. This movie had really good acting, which is, redundant for an Oscar nominated movie, but still felt noteworthy here. The music was really good and the scenery was really deeply beautiful. My mom told me that this feels like a play, and she's absolutely right. However, I'm really glad that this wasn't a play because this movie is incredibly Irish, and I wouldn't have been able to understand what was being said without subtitles. I also really liked the ending. The story keeps slowly building, and then we have a pretty big ending for what the story is. This is a bitter story with a lot of deeply lonely people at its center. It's a lot of people being sad at each other for 2 hours, and I really enjoyed it. Okay, so I had a lot of thoughts and feelings about this movie, so I'm just gonna kind of go into that real quick. So I went to work after watching this movie and literally thought about it my whole shift. And then I wrote this on a frenzy in my single 15-minute break that I had, and then edited later, added more, and then I just had to get it out of my system. So some of the core themes that are explored in this movie are loneliness and niceness. The movie starts with Colm, played by Brendan Gleeson, telling Podrick, played by Colin Farrell, that he doesn't want to be friends with him anymore. No fight or reason, he just doesn't like him anymore. Everyone says that it doesn't make sense because Podrick is such a nice guy. That's the word that they always use. However, Colm says that Podrick is dull. Colin has a conversation with Podrick's sister where she says he's always been dull. Nothing, what's changed? Nothing changed. Colin just wants to spend the rest of his life in peace composing music for his fiddle. Podrick's sister tells Colin that everyone on this island is fecking dull, including Colin, and Colin knows she's right. Podrick and Colm have two more conversations where Colm tells Podrick to leave him alone, but Podrick keeps coming back, trying to get Colm to be his friend again. However, after the second conversation, Colm says that the next time Podrick talks to him, he's cutting off one of his own fingers and will send it to Podrick. He says he feels that Podrick never leaves him alone, and if he doesn't do some drastic measures to correct that. However, this is an interesting choice of drastic measure. He doesn't threaten to harm Podrick, he threatens to harm himself. And on his fiddle playing hand. This is interesting because the whole reason he wants to stop being friends with Podrick in the first place is because he wants to compose music for his fiddle. We see him in the pub with music students working together on music as well as composing for himself. So why would he risk sacrificing his fiddle playing hand, especially when he's so concerned with legacy and being remembered? I think that there are three possible reasons. One is that he is trying to see if Podrick ever cared about him in the first place, or if he is so selfish that he is willing to risk Colm's happiness just for the sake of not being lonely. The other reason could be that Colm is suicidal and that by cutting off his fiddle playing fingers, he commits a form of suicide. Another reason is that he fears that he will never be remembered like the greats that he loves, like Mozart and Beethoven, and that by using Podrick, he is giving himself an excuse for why he will never be remembered. Like he can tell himself that Podrick pushed him to cut off his fingers, so that's why he will never be remembered and not a failure from within himself. What is also interesting about this movie is Podrick's fall to meanness. He starts off the movie being nice. He helps Dominic, played by Barry Keoghan, spend a night away from his abusive father, even if he is annoying as hell. But then, as the movie continues, he gets less nice. He gets drunk and has a conversation with Colm post finger cutting incident, and basically realizes that Colm was never nice. He thought he was, but he actually wasn't. I think that Podrick was talking about himself as well. Then after that point, he lied to one of Colm's music friends and says that a car hit his dad and that he needs to go home to see him, which, by the way, this is set in 1923 Ireland, so that he can have Colm to himself. Podrick tells Dominic about this, and Dominic says that he thought Podrick was different from the rest, basically not mean, but that he actually is just like everyone else. This causes Podrick to spiral even more. Colm doesn't punish Podrick for the drunk conversation, but he does when Podrick comes to Colm's house and attempts to apologize for what he said. Colm then cuts off a finger, throws it at Podrick's door, and leaves. Podrick attempts to have another conversation with Colm later, and Colm cuts off his remaining 4 fingers to punish Podrick. What is so interesting is that through all this, Colm literally ends his music career to send the message to Podrick that he doesn't like him anymore. Colm still cares about Podrick. When Colm throws his 4 fingers at the door, Podrick isn't home. As a result, Podrick's beloved donkey, Jenny, eats a finger, chokes, and dies. Podrick comes home and is distraught that she's dead. Colm finds out and feels really bad, not because he cares about the donkey, but because he made Podrick sad beyond his intentions. Podrick also gets beat up by a cop at one point, and Colm finds him, puts him on a horse, and makes sure that he gets home safe in total silence. That interaction is one of the most significant between the two of them because it shows that Colm actually does care about him. We see little moments like this where Colm is actually nice and wants to live when it really matters, and that Podrick is mean and deeply lonely in similar places. This movie shows that the most important parts of life are the small acts of kindness and love, like when Colm silently helps Podrick because, of course, he still loves him. He just hates himself a bit more and needs to see that angerness and bitterness reflected in front of him. The sad thing is that even though these small, seemingly insignificant acts of love are important, the people in it do not realize it. Obsessed with leading a meaningful life leads both Colm and, as a result, Podrick to become miserable, alone, and unremarkable. As a result of the donkey dying on the same day that Podrick's sister, who is the most important person in his life, leaves for a life on the mainland, Podrick goes to Colm and is basically like, "Feck you, I will be bothering you for the rest of time and tomorrow, and I will burn your house down. If you are in there or not, I don't care. Just make sure your dog is outside." Podrick says that he would never hurt Colm's dog because he was the nicest part of Colm. We see the nicest that Colm ever is when he's alone with his dog, which is just very human of him. There is this chilling moment where Podrick decides that he no longer wants to be Colm's friend. He is no longer trying to be nice. He has embodied revenge. Podrick does exactly what he threatens. He burns Colm's house down with Colm inside and takes his dog. However, we find that the Colm chooses to live when confronted with his actual real death. Podrick returns to the house the next day and finds that Colm is alive and unharmed. This is the only point in the entire movie when Colm initiates conversation with Podrick about something mundane. It's like he doesn't respect Podrick as a person unless he's as miserable and mean as he feels he is, or that he regrets pushing Podrick to this point out of his own despair at his own life. Only when he is drunk or mean will Colm listen to him, because then Podrick reminds him of himself. Colm ends the movie with no musical future, but when given the opportunity to die, he chooses to live. He thought his fiddle was the only reason he was alive, but he finds out that it's more than that. Podrick ends the movie miserable, his sister gone, and he lets his farm animals into his house, a sign that he is at his loneliest. Throughout, both characters get torn down to their barest souls through these situations, and both learn that they are more like the other than they think. Colm ends the movie dull and alive. Podrick is lonely and mean. The irony is that no one on this island will be remembered, and while Colm knew that earlier, I think he accepted it at the end. In conclusion, I really liked this movie. It made me really think about the themes and character goals. Yeah, it's really good. You should watch it. Okay, my number 1 top movie of the year is Top Gun Maverick. Is this objectively the best movie to come out this year? No. That goes to Banshees or Everything Everywhere All at Once. Sorry, I got the acronym wrong there. But this movie was my favorite. To be clear, I don't think that this movie should win Best Picture, but it is my favorite. This movie is just so cool. This is the perfect kind of cheesy movie, cheese that is done with so much love and passion that it feels genuine. I love the original Top Guns. When me and my mom went and saw this movie, we were like so excited since we both love the original. Do I like Tom Cruise as a person? Fuck no. However, damn it if he doesn't know how to make a fun as hell movie. This movie is just so easy to watch, so easy to have fun with. I laughed, I cried, truly just awesome. The stunts are top notch. I mean, this is a Tom Cruise movie. Of course, the stunts are going to be insanely cool. They had a shirtless football scene with a pop song playing, and I literally had a moment where I was like, oh yeah, this movie fucks. Just such a fun movie. 10 out of 10. No notes. Um, yeah, I've kind of come full circle a little bit with Tom Cruise. Like, at first, when I kind of learned about Scientology, I was like, oh, Tom Cruise is a horrible person. And then I watched his movies, and he makes good movies. So, I love Mission Impossible. I've seen them all. I like Top Gun. He's made a lot of good dramas too. Risky Business, Jerry Maguire, Rain Man. Like, those are all good movies. Okay, Tom Cruise knows how to make a good movie. Okay, so now we go on to Best Animated Feature. My least favorite animated movie that I watched that year, or the one that's nominated, is Turning Red. At this point, this movie coming out in the same year as Everything Everywhere All at Once did it no favors. Again, I'm writing this as I am watching the movie because I was bored. I feel like I've seen this story done a million other times and done better. Brother Bear did the person turns into an animal to learn a life lesson better. Mob Psycho 100 did the emotions manifesting in power that you need to learn to accept yourself to control better. Bob's Burgers did the 13-year-old teen experience better. The animation was great, of course. This is Pixar. It feels redundant to mention at this point. But I just thought the story was all very cliche. I've seen all of this before. Nothing felt original, unique, or noteworthy. I try to give stories about teenage girls the benefit of the doubt, but I'm sorry, I thought the main girl was kind of annoying. And I know that was the point, but like, when I watch Bob's Burgers, there's lots and lots of moments where I'm like, she's just like me for real with Tina. Mei Mei and Tina are really similar characters, but I just like Tina better. I'm constantly pulled out of this movie to be reminded of other things. I don't necessarily think that Turning Red is a bad movie structurally. Like, I just think that my main complaint is I just feel like I've seen this before, and maybe I hold Pixar to a higher standard than most because I feel like so many movies that Pixar has made have been really original and set the bar and so many things, and I just feel like Turning Red was just kind of run of the mill. I don't know. It really didn't surprise me. It didn't, do anything that I thought was particularly new. If you like it, that's great. If it worked for you, great. But I don't know. It just didn't do it for me. Okay, the next one is The Sea Beast. I am going to be so honest. I completely forgot that this movie existed. And then when I was going over my slides before I did this, I was like, holy shit. I completely forgot that this movie existed, which maybe isn't the best sign. But I hadn't heard about this movie before it got nominated, which is kind of a surprise because it was made by the dude who helps write Frozen, Big Hero 6, and Moana. Was this movie good? Kinda. It wasn't bad. The animation was really beautiful and well done. However, the story was just kind of mid. Like, it was fine, but it felt like I had seen it before. Like, okay, does the trope of man learns a new part of life by taking in a little girl is like, okay, we get it. I also did the How to Train Your Dragon, learning to take care of an animal that is hunted by people thing. Look, at the Red Beast 2, doesn't that look like Toothless? He looks like Toothless. So it just didn't feel original at all. And I'm okay if a story isn't original, but this wasn't executed in a particularly well, cool, or unique way. Not offensive or anyway, just a little dull. I legitimately, since I completely forgot that this movie existed, I could not tell you a single fucking thing that happens in this movie. Sorry. Like, I feel bad. I do feel bad about that, but I do not remember this movie at all. Okay, the next one is Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Okay, so I have never liked the original Pinocchio movie. I always thought it was pretty boring. I think I have seen the movie like maybe once in my life. So even though I like Guillermo del Toro and I like stop motion, I didn't watch this movie when it came out because it was Pinocchio. Well, I finally watched it, and unfortunately, my opinion about the Pinocchio story hasn't changed. I didn't really like this movie. However, if you do, that's totally acceptable. My favorite parts of this movie were the animation and the parts that deviated from the traditional story. The heavier war elements I actually really enjoyed. Pinocchio goes to actual real war in this movie. He meets the personification of death, and the way that he becomes a real boy in this movie is that he has the ability to die. I think that that was really cool. But whenever they started singing or they brought up the whale, I was just not thrilled. I also thought that Pinocchio himself was kind of annoying. Overall, it wasn't a bad movie, but not exactly one that I enjoyed. Yeah, like I feel like the personification of death stuff, like that was really cool. That reminded me of Pan's Labyrinth. So the closer that this movie gets to Pan's Labyrinth, the more I enjoy it, and then the more I kind of goes a little bit down the kids movie path. That's where I became less interested in it, just because I feel like the darker elements were really really cool, and the lighter ones not so much. Okay, the best movie of the year was Puss in Boots. Puss in Boots 2. I know. This movie ruled. Again, I know this isn't news, but it was really good. This animation was seriously incredible. We are now in an era where kids who grew up watching anime are now animators, and that means that the fights and actions are made in a way that just looks a lot cooler, in my humble opinion. They were also clearly influenced by Into the Spider-Verse, which is just so cool since I also love that movie. Side note, it is so interesting to see the effect that Into the Spider-Verse has had on the animation industry. You know, that first movie came out, I don't know how many years ago. Many, several years by this point, but it's not exactly old. And it is so interesting to see how so many animated movies are like taking what Into the Spider-Verse did and then kind of making it their own, like that style of animation. We've had so many movies that are really inspired by Into the Spider-Verse, and I just think that's so cool to like see a change in art style and art movement happen in real time. I think that's really neat for me personally. Okay, so I also really love the story as well for Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. The villain is seriously one of the coolest villains in a kids movie that I've ever seen. He was legitimately intimidating and just very cool. I also really like the story revolving around Puss in Boots himself. Coming to grips with his own mortality, finding that what he wants out of life is changing from adventure and glory to companionship and finding love in others, growing to not fear death, but to see it as something that makes life meaningful in the first place was just really sick. I loved the side characters as well. They are all distinct and bring a lot to the story. My only complaint is that at some points it's still trying to be a kids movie, which again, I realize I was 22 when I watched this. I may not have always been the target audience. So, if my complaint is that it's too much like a kids movie, like fucking whatever. That's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a kids movie. Um, but it's just I think it's because there are a lot of elements in this movies that feel very emotionally mature, and then there are other elements that feel like they're aimed at kids, and so I wish that this movie was solely aimed with adults in mind, which is obviously ridiculous. That's a ridiculous thing to say, and not something that would be practical in the slightest. Why would you make a Puss in Boots movie for adults? But yeah, it was really good movie. I mean, I know everybody says that, but yeah, it was really good. Okay, so we now have a section for movies that are not nominated for Best Picture, but nominated other categories that I did watch that I just wanted to talk about. Okay, Babylon. I am normally very patient with movies. I will finish things I don't like just to have a complete idea about what it is. I turned this movie off in the first 5 minutes because it was gross. An elephant shit on a dude forever, and then a girl pissed in a dude's mouth. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, this movie is just going to be gross the whole time, and I have no interest in watching it. Literally, I didn't even meet any of the main characters. I love La La Land and Whiplash. Damien Chazelle knows what he's doing, but this is just gross. I know everyone loves Babylon. I know everyone loves it. I just thought it was gross. I don't know why they did that. I don't know why we started off with 5 minutes of just pure shit and piss. After I watched this, I was going to try to force myself to watch Triangle of Sadness, but if you've seen that movie, you know why. the amount of piss and shit in this movie was a little too much for me. So, yeah, I couldn't watch Triangle of Sadness. Sorry. Maybe I'll watch this, I don't know, at some point and just skip the first 5 minutes. I don't know. Somebody please tell me if there's as much piss and shit throughout the rest of the movie as there is in the first 5 minutes. Maybe I'll just skip it. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, RRR. was awesome. If Nacho Nacho doesn't win Best Song, I'm Riding in the Streets. It did. No need to riot. That scene was so fun. This movie overall was just so much fun. It was an insane, over the top, super crazy movie. It felt a lot like anime, which is probably like why I liked it so much. But it is harder to describe what makes this movie so awesome without watching it, and I think just everyone should just watch it. It is highly entertaining. The characters are great. The story feels itself very Shakespearean in a way. Easy movie to like. Watch this with a group of people, and it is guaranteed to have a good time. It is. This is this is a movie for everyone. Legitimately, like I know it's 3 hours long. I know it's in another language, but it is so fun. It is so easy to watch. Just check it out if you haven't seen it. Special dedication. I would like to give a special thanks to the movies that kept me sane while watching so many bad movies for this. There was a lot of it. I was it's like I watched a lot of the good movies, as they were coming out in theaters. So when I was left with the movies to kind of complete the nomination list, I was left with a bunch of stinkers. So it was like I just watched like movie I didn't like after movie I didn't like after movie I didn't like. So I would like to thank the movies that I would sprinkle in to keep myself sane to watch a good movie. So I watched Ghost in the Shell for the first time. I watched Akira for the first time, and I watched Edge of Tomorrow for the first time. So triple threat of anime movies. Yes, I'm counting Edge of Tomorrow as an anime movie. It was adapted from a light novel, even though it's not anime, but it's Japanese, whatever. So they have been really invaluable to me throughout this process. Getting to watch some truly fantastic sci-fi has been just really awesome. I will forget about most of the movies I watched for this, as I have clearly already done, but not these ones. I will remember them forever. I watched Ghost in the Shell in theaters when that happened this year, which was great. I love Ghost in the Shell. I'm patiently waiting for Akira to come back in theaters. I'm sure it will at some point. How can it not? So I'm kind of waiting to do a rewatch of Akira until either the right moment arises or it's released in theaters again. But I also really liked Edge of Tomorrow. Like that's a movie that I feel like Tom Cruise doesn't really get, like nobody really talks about it in his discography. He's not a musician in his filmography. But I really liked it. I thought it was really good. Like, I love a cool kind of take on a time loop. I thought this one did a really good job. Yeah, I liked it a lot. Thank you for listening. I just like to say that kind of getting to do, present and talk about this 2 years after the fact. I don't think that this year was a particularly strong one for movies. I think we had a couple really great ones, but overall, it just, I don't know. There was a lot of movies that came out this year that were really forgettable. That I'm really only reminded of kind of through looking at this. Um, so yeah, it's kind of a bummer, but every year, we always have our highs and lows years. Not every year can be as good as 2019 or 2023 because that was a really good year. If you want to know my thoughts about the movies released in 2023, I have a video about it. But yeah, okay. Thank you for watching. That's all.